I remember I had a friend that lived in the South Bronx, and he used to tell us these crazy cockroach stories, you know, like you turn on the light and they were all around, like crazy stories back in the college days. And I was like, how cool would that to be in a game?
If only you could just push them back with a flashlight.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of PlayStation Underground. You got Tim here, and I'm joined by Kristen.
Hello.
And we're checking out Oddworld Soulstorm. We're joined by two very special guests. We got Benny Terry, executive producer at Oddworld Inhabitants. Thanks for joining us, Benny.
Thank you so much for having me.
And none other than Lorne Lanning, co-founder and president of Oddworld Inhabitants and creator of the Abe IP, the whole Oddworld IP. Lorne, such an honor to have you with us.
Oh, thanks for having us on, Tim.
Yeah.
Glad to be here. It's a great relief to be talking about the game rather than building the game.
Yeah, we're so close to April 6th release on PS4 and PS5. And just for those, checking out the game, as a heads up, this was pre-recorded gameplay. We're checking out new sections of some levels, but you'll see us kind of jump from area to area, so it's not all exactly the same sequence that we'll see in the final game. But Benny, Lauren, can you tell us a little bit? Maybe we'll start with you. Lauren, what section of the game are we starting out with here?
This is where you saw right in the beginning. This is the very beginning of the game, and this is what we call officially what the level is called. Benny, you might have to update me because it's changed somewhat as all the as you know from working titles of levels to what the actual one is.
I always love the internal code names.
Yeah, so this is the Mosaic, and this is where the game begins, and right out of the opening movie. And we wanted to start this game off with more action, more defensive play. So there's almost no offensive play. You're just trying to survive and stay out of trouble and not get wrecked.
No.
Yeah. And we really wanted to have this sense that in the background is all of the characters that are trying to meet you at a safe place. After this trek.
Oh, yeah, you can really see that line in the background of them all running.
Yeah, so you'll see them at different times, and they're sort of fleeing. And the opening movie sort of gives this a lot more context. But one of the new mechanics that we really wanted was related to the secret of the game, or I should say the mystery, which is the brew. And the brew is really at the heart of the theme here. When the theme is, you may have saved yourself from an oppressor, but really have you saved yourself from your own addictions and habits and things that enslave your mind?
Right.
And so that's sort of a generalized theme of where this game takes off. And what they're finding is that what Abe will discover is there's a lot more to the brew than he knows about. But one of its qualities is flammability. And so we really wanted a sense of a volatile world, and we wanted a true, something that, you're kind of pushing on or putting out. So fire and flammability of liquid became a thing.
I was going to say, this level we're seeing a lot of, he's just trying to, douse where he can and keep things cool so that he's not running through fire.
Yeah, so at times he's picking up flammability, and at times he's picking up water that puts out flammability. Mm-hmm. So the brew is flammable, and at times you need to burn things down, and at times you put them out. But then it has a lot of trap conditions where you can, lay brew pits, and then you see how the flames spread.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So you can spread fire quite well, in a liquid sense. And this is just something historically in games I always wanted to have this sense of a fire that actually burned and could spread and was not just a canned effect that kept on repeating itself, but had more life to it.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing here. And it also burns structures. Some of these are laden with explosives and stuff. But these were all things to make the environment a bit more volatile itself, and that it was changing over time. And we've just run through this mosaic area.
Oh, I love that,
Get a little
background
Abe.
look.
Yeah, Kong-inspired moment there.
Benny, what would you say beyond the brewing aspect and sort of thinking through, working through fire, working through water? What are some of the other core features that folks can look forward to in Oddworld Soulstorm?
Definitely there's an evolution in the way that Abe traverses the world. So from, historical, it was very precise in the way Abe would walk, run, jump, hoist, but now he's far more agile, right? Way more flexible in the way that he can move from platform to platform. And what we say internally often is he kind of has a parkouring mobility in his locomotion. And so you'll see that as play continues, where he's faster, more agile, and it just feels more natural to play as Abe, right, versus the very pixel perfect logic that we had previously.
And part of that, driving on part of that was that, we've always had sort of notoriously hard games, and we didn't want to, and that's part of something that a demographic of our fan base really likes, but we had to find a sweeter spot for it. And so we wanted that more of Abe was less perfection in your motion, where if you didn't get it exactly right, you fail. And we wanted more abilities to save yourself through dexterity, so that your sort of acrobatic capability, I know I've seen a lot of chat on the, we put in a double jump, but I think when people play it, it will give it more context. Because we wanted more success due to skill and more saving yourself due to skill. And as we were playing those things out with his basic moves, the dexterity, I would say our previous game, if we were dinged, it was largely on controls, that we would have some lag times and things like that. That became very important for us to address and fix on this title.
Yeah.
So on the camera system, one of the things that was really important to us was we always wanted to get more cinematic control. In the original games, we had movies taking you into the world, because we wanted to see our pull in the distance, our goals in the distance. Yeah. This game is doing this much more than any game we've done in the past, because we actually built the this what we call 2.9, where the character's running ability is not just flat, right? It's operating in 3 dimensions, but it still retains the controls of the people that like classic platformers, and that makes a big difference on when you're bouncing
the space
things.
Feel more physical, like you're actually moving through it.
Right,
and it controls the framing really well. So you always keep Abe, the player control, and the characters that you're focused on in that frame. So the cinematic elements of it are great, but also just the gameplay, it blends them both together. It was a real win for us on Soulstorm to be able to kind of get all of that together in one camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it had a lot of difficulties as it affected the audio engine, because if you think about, most games, you're almost always the same distance away from the character with the camera, whether you're POV, whether you're over the shoulder. But in this game, look at the distance, Abe just became almost half the size. The thing I didn't see coming was the impacts on audio that would be. What are you supposed to hear? Where's the listening mics in the world for the player? And it caused us to get into a whole lot of hybrid sort of solutions that we really weren't faced with in the past on previous productions. So just that ability of moving the camera in and out, having the characters traverse 3-dimensionally in the world, and taking advantage of the higher resolution, like what the PS5 is offering, instead of going close and getting more detail, which we do at times, but we really wanted that ability where Abe could be really small in the world. And you'll see this at times, and he'll get smaller to make the world feel bigger and more ominous and more real. And that was always...
It does feel very, vast. He's just moving through this huge space.
It's also cool because, Lauren, I've heard you describe the role of the player in the world of Abe and Oddworld as sort of being like a guardian angel type too. So I feel like it, helps you zoom out and have a more omnipotent view.
There you go. And thank you for that, because it was really important for us. And we wanted that feeling. We never wanted to lose that feeling of the guardian angel. And so it's tricky, right? As you're approaching the narrative of game, is it the gamer's perspective as the character, or are you helping the character? We always looked at it as though you're helping the character, and so making the world feel bigger, have more camera angles on it, feel more cinematic at times. Here he's laying a trap. Abe's laying a trap out of a crafted mine, a stun mine that he crafted, which gives him more agency, gives him a lot more reasons to, explore, which is another thing we wanted. We wanted to make exploration a much more gratifying experience where you just got more wow moments of beauty.
Will he make it through these lasers?
Good luck, Abe.
Yeah, snipers. Pow!
Oh.
It didn't work out well.
Darn it.
And here we're into the cinematics. So that's the Slig pilot, and this is Mullock the Glukkon. And there's Abe. We're moving ahead in time. He's in process of hijacking a train. But if you notice our characters, again, the Glukkon, you'll notice we went for hyper expression on the Mudokons, on the Glukkons. The Sligs is hard to do that with because they have a mask on, right? But if you look at the Glukkon, if you look at their eyes, we're constantly scaling their eyeballs, bigger or smaller, dilating their pupils more, not just paying attention to what a normal muscular structure would do in deformation animating, where you're like, I want to lift the eyebrows more. I wanted to get more of that classic expression out of classic animation, not so much in the squash and stretch of like bouncing and things like that, but in hyper expression of character faces.
And definitely Hollywood caliber techniques in delivering that.
Yeah, I was going to say the detail here and the movement is so good.
Yeah, just the body language of the two characters.
The cigar moving.
Yeah.
It's funny because, like always, these were early in the production, right? And as you got later, things keep getting better and the team gets more familiar and all this stuff. So I think there really is sort of a ramp of some of the animation stuff gets more sophisticated as we go on. Like you can see here with Mullock's face. It's subtle.
But the eye, right there.
Is twitching. Yeah.
Twitching. But the way that we're doing all these little things, like to get those expressions, we're actually scaling the eyes down, which means the eyelids and all these things, which is something that was a little foreign to a lot of the animators, but they loved it. I could belabor that explanation, but it was really about the hyper expression. And then we had animators that largely come from, there was a long list of animators in the credits, really handled, that did a stellar job.
I was going to say, it sounds like a fantastic team because that cutscene right there just looked awesome.
I love it, yeah.
You seem to have moved to a blue cave now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here this is a trial. So in this game, this is Abe's trial, and he's facing, in the original Abe's Exodus, he faced the Fleeches. These are the Sleeches. So it's like they're slightly different. But what we wanted to play off of two things here predominantly. One, that we wanted dynamic light to actually have a purpose, kind of like a weapon or like a prod. We could move. These characters that he's dealing with are afraid of the light.
Oh, I see. So whenever he shines it, they look
So
around.
you're in a dark area, right? And you have a light, but there's creatures in this area that are afraid of light. So you're in this push and pull, dealing with these creatures that are all trying to get you in mass. Like they start to get a lot of them on screen, and you use the light to try and manipulate them. So which was always a theme that I wanted to play with. The idea of like, I've had a couple homes with rat problems, like an under the house or something like that.
Oh no!
And if you've ever dealt with rats,
is that the inspiration?
it actually is. It was just terrible. So here we really wanted to play with the light, where it would help you slow down and carefully navigate, and then there's a number of traps.
Watch out
and
for
stuff
environmental hazards.
Environmental hazards. I'm going to let Benny talk about that in a minute. And then we really wanted that ability to manipulate a character that was afraid of us, afraid of the light, not afraid of us, but afraid of the light. So here you'll start to notice these things start to creep up on him, but with the light he can push them away and they will flee. And so we wanted that behavior like rats or cockroaches, I remember I had a friend that lived in the South Bronx, and he used to tell us these crazy cockroach stories, like you turn on the light and they were all around, like crazy stories back in the college days. And I was like, how cool would that be in a game?
If only you could just push them back with
yeah, exactly. And so we implemented a fair amount of that. But Benny, why don't you go into the hazards and stuff?
I was going to say, tell us a little bit as we move to this train section. Tell us about sort of just environmental hazards that Abe is going to have to move through.
So, and that's a classic theme for Oddworld and environmental hazards in Soulstorm. We just up the ante quite a bit, right? So every level kind of has those persistent environmental hazards. So if the Sleeches don't get you, if the Sligs don't kill you, right? And equally as lethal and dangerous. Then the environmental hazards, they're shooting out of walls, they're falling from ceilings, there's bludgeon objects, swinging through worlds. So Abe just has a million different ways he can die, right? And his followers. And there's some hilarity to that. It's like initially, when I first started seeing not only Abe, but the followers die, I was like, oh, that's gruesome. But then I started laughing because they would die in funny ways, right? And it wasn't until Lauren, when we had them die with ragdoll, right? When we had them fly out towards the screen, as you see with sniper shots, it just started making people laugh, right? And I was like, okay, anytime we get a laugh, that's a feature we want to spend more time and effort on. so just add more wins like that.
A lot of conflicted emotions because I love these guys. I want them all to survive, but it's also hilarious.
Exactly. At times it's just devastating how many of them will get whacked in one hit. Oh no! And we wanted that. Another thing you'll notice here is that there's these blue poles, and they look kind of like. There's two things going on that you're seeing. There's these blue poles, which are actually slig poles. So now sligs, out of our tradition, now have the ability to go up and to use poles to get to different level areas, different platforms. And that wasn't the case historically. So it made them more dynamic, and it made more acreage that you could traverse with an ongoing conflict. And that was really important to us, that it wasn't just like, okay, I have this puzzle. Okay, I've solved this puzzle, I move on. Okay, so now, saving guys can be devastating because they don't always get saved. A lot of times they get whacked. In this case, you're releasing guys to climb a ladder en masse. And I'm going to let Benny explain this.
Oh, man, I love these gauntlets. So, in old Oddworld or classic Oddworld, you'd have onesie, twosie kind of combat. But now there's just hundreds and hundreds of guys to save and protect. So Abe escorts them through these different kind of traversal puzzles up to the top as he's dealing with the threats and also just making sure that his guys continue climbing up to safety at the very top.
Making sure that they're all safe,
Yeah,
too.
and if you see the slig will come out, did they get the chance to see how they start shooting at the guys in the background? And at times, it's just raining bodies.
It's just such a great sort of, summarization of the stakes of, of everything that's at stake, like, for Abe and all of his followers. But as we say goodbye, I just really wanted to thank you, Lauren and Benny, for joining us in this episode of PlayStation Underground and a fresh look at, Oddworld Soulstorm. So, folks don't have long to wait. It's going to be out on PS4 and PS5 on April 6th. And if you have an active PlayStation Plus membership, you can get the PS5 version of Oddworld Soulstorm as part of your monthly games benefits, and that's from April 6th to May 3rd. That's not applicable to the PS4 version, just as a note, but that's Oddworld Soulstorm. So thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Tim and Kristen, thanks so much for having us on. It's been great.